everyone, it's Alma from the Cat's Pajamas. I've had so many people ask me how to make roses from seam binding that I thought I'd do a little video. First, let's make some small ones. You're going to need some glue dots, and I like the 3D pop-up kind. Start with one glue dot. I like to tear it off the roll but keep it on the paper. But you, of course, don't have to. I just have a hard time controlling all those glue dots at one time, so working one at a time is best for me. And the second thing you'll need is seam binding. Just tie a knot at the end of the seam binding. For the small roses, I like a tight knot. Then you start rolling the seam binding around the knot. Now you just keep rolling and rolling and rolling, and you hold the rose at one end as you're rolling to keep it together. Once you've rolled enough to match the width of the glue dot, you can choose which side of the rose you want to be the top. I think that I want this side to be the top. It's pretty. So now take the other side of the rose and just press it right into the glue dot and squish. Squish it hard, and then you squish it again. Squish, squish. There you go. Then you just take a pair of scissors and you trim off the excess. I like to leave a little tail at the end, and you'll see why in a little bit. There you have it, a small rolled rose. Now here's a card I made using a slightly different technique to make bigger cabbage roses. I think it's a really elegant look, and it's really easy to make. First, you're going to need some seam binding. About 12 to 16 inches for these roses, depending on how fluffy you want them. And then you're going to want this glue. It's called Scrap Happy glue, and it's a brand new glue that I love. Not only is it clear when it dries, but it dries really tacky, really tacky. Then you're going to need glue dots. I like these 1-inch wide red line dots for these roses just to make it easier to see. You'll need one for each rose. And then you're going to need clear acetate. I like this heavy acetate because I'll be building the roses on them, and I want a sturdy base, and I want the base see-through just in case the roses don't completely cover the base. And for this size cabbage rose, I want to use a circle punch. A 1 1/4 inch punch is a good size. It's not too small, not too large, it's just right. Now start by punching a circle out of the acetate for each rose you want. Now take the glue dot and place it in the center of each of the circles that you just punched out. And you don't have to be precise, just somewhere in the center. Now you'll notice that this leaves a little clear border between the red circle glue dot and the outside of the clear circle acetate that you just cut out. Just in case the edge of the acetate shows through the seam binding, you won't be able to see the adhesive from the red line glue dot. Now you're going to take the Scrap Happy glue and you start spreading the glue on the side of the circle that doesn't have a glue dot on it. You want to put on a pretty thick amount on the circle and spread it to almost the very edge. And since there's so much glue glopped on there, it's going to take a while to dry. I like to leave it at least overnight, but make sure you put it in a place where it won't be disturbed. Because I don't know about your house, but the people and cats in my house like to put their fingers and paws in things that look like frosting. Now you're going to know it's dry once it's clear and there's no white left. This actually could take longer than overnight, depending on how thick you put the glue on. What you're doing, in essence, is making a great big giant glue dot. And you're going to make a great big giant glue dot for each of the cabbage roses that you're going to want. Pretty simple so far, right? So here's what the dots look like when they dry. See how they stick? Really, really sticky. Once they're dry, I like to store them upside down on the same sheet of paper that the red line glue dots came on. Then it's easy for me just to peel them off and use them. So let's make a cabbage rose. We're going to start the same way that we made the small rolled rose by making a knot at the end. Now attach the knot to the center of the glue dot. Just like that. Press it really good. Now start wrapping the ribbon around the knot, catching the edge of the ribbon and pressing it into the dot. Once you go all the way around the knot, give the ribbon a little twist and keep on going. There's really no rhyme or reason when to add the twist. It just depends on what kind of rose you want. I remember making a bazillion really tight ribbon roses for wedding favors. Did you ever do that? It's the same concept. Now the dot's really, really sticky, and I find it's best to hold the circle with my thumb on top of the seam binding. The more times you go around, the fuller your rose will be. What I like about these seam binding roses is that they're cheap and they're easy to make. And they're light and they squish really, really flat. That makes them the perfect candidate to go into an envelope and actually mail. How many embellishments can you say that about? Now you keep on going until you reach the very edge of the clear acetate circle. Looks pretty good. And then you trim the excess ribbon off, leaving a little tail, just like we did with the smaller rolled rose. So now you finish the rose, and you've got that little tail end. Go ahead and give it a good squish. And squish and press that seam binding into the glue. So here's the card without the roses. I'm going to run the roses across the top of the yellow paper. Just take a rose and peel off the backing from the red line dot. Remember that cut edge of the seam binding? We're going to just push that into the adhesive. That gives the rose a nice finished look. And I like to start from the center and work out. Here's the second one. And I'm going to place this really tight against the first one. Just press that seam binding into the dot. There you go. Just keep pulling the backing off the red line dot and pushing the cut edge in, and then place it. That's the one we just made. At least I think it is. We're almost done. Here's the last one. Now to finish off the card, I'm going to use the lacy butterfly cut-ups to cut a butterfly, and I decorated it with some rhinestones. Put a little adhesive on the back of the butterfly, and call this card done. Making seam binding roses is easy.